campaigns and catalytic projects that will serve to redress the long-standing and ongoing socio-economic exclusion of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. We have been mandated to ensure that through active advocacy and mainstreaming, the plight of these three constituencies do receive the same level of attention and resources. So today's program has commenced with a media briefing, which we are in here today. It will then be followed by the tabling of the budget vote 20 and will conclude with a fire chat stakeholder side event. We have brought together a plethora of stakeholders, including economists, researchers, students, civil society, parliamentarians, and just ordinary South Africans. The primary aim of this is to have a candid discussion on the lived realities of our vulnerable constituencies, engage on the proposed interventions versus the budget allocated to the department priorities, but also will delve into the research expertise as well as wisdom of experts and the affected to further strengthen the implementation of our programs, which include women, youth, and persons with disabilities. And these, they include gender equity, empowerment programs, inclusive of interventions aimed at fighting gender-based violence and femicide. And therefore, Program Director and ladies and gentlemen, as South Africa, we have begun and have been given a rare opportunity as well as a mammoth responsibility of hosting the G20 presidency for 2025. Our resolve is to make this moment count and have the kind of impact that will transcend our presidency. So we present our budget vote as we also are the president of the G20. As the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities, we have been entrusted with the responsibility of chairing the Empowerment of Women Working Group, referred to as EWWG. The EWWG focuses on strengthening the G20's commitment to gender equality. So as we prepare for the final ministerial declaration, we have held 3 incredible technical meetings that have shone an unprecedented spotlight on 3 priorities. And I think it is important that we highlight this on this important day. We identified our priority number 1 as policy perspectives on the K economy, both paid and unpaid. And we said inclusion as an instrument of women's economic empowerment. And we said our priority 3 is prevention and response to gender-based violence and femicide. With regard to the K economy, evidence shows that women carry the burden of care in families, communities, and health systems, yet their labor is often invisible, it is undervalued, and it is unpaid. We want government to treat care as a public good, not a private burden. With regard to financial inclusion, we have drawn attention to the fact that women, especially in rural areas and the informal sector, are still excluded from land. They don't own land, from credit, from capital, from markets, procurement, and the digital economy. We have joined the strong call for the reforming and reimagining of a global financial architecture that is truly gender responsive. At this multilateral level, we've been able to rally the G20 community through our chairship of the Empowerment of Women Working Group behind a more deliberate pushback against gender-based violence and femicide, and its very manifestations at an individual, family, and community level, both online and offline. Here at home, In line with our National Strategic Plan on GBVF, we have made great strides in rallying civil society, religious and traditional leadership, academia, private and public sector, behind our community-driven and evidence-informed response to gender-based violence and femicide incidents that are increasingly resulting in incidents of femicide. We have recently joined hands with COCTA to support their establishment of the Queen's Forum, which will leverage the authority and standing of our traditional leaders across the country. We will target educational institutions to cultivate a culture of young people who detest violence of any kind, especially GBVF. We'll also work with community leaders to rally young men against GBVF. As you would recall, in 2024, we received and took custody of the Human Science Research Council's groundbreaking prevalence study on GBVF. I'm pleased to indicate that we have since incorporated the recommendations of this study into both our strategic plan as well as our annual performance plan that we will be presenting the budget for today. Ladies and gentlemen, we've further proposed the establishment for the G20 of the Disability Inclusion Working Group, which will be an additional working group to be established and discussed further at the level of the G20 by subsequent countries, which will take up the chairship of the G20. So yes, indeed, this will be South Africa's initiative, but we hope that US, when we hand over to them, they will take up this responsibility. However, we're also engaging UK so that if US maybe does not take up this responsibility, but UK will do that. We do hope that it's going to happen because we were invited by the G7 countries in Italy, and they actually begged us to do this and to start this initiative. And therefore, if US doesn't, we do believe that UK will run with it because they were part of the G7 that actually begged South Africa to initiate this important responsibility. We have committed to taking the G20 to the people so that it is truly the people's G20. A G20 that listens, that includes, and that leaves behind a legacy of progress. Our participation and activities in our working group reflect the lived realities of South African women, youth, and persons with disabilities. We continue to also include historically marginalized communities in rural areas, informal settlements, farms, as well as townships. We've been in Taung, for instance, in the Northwest, and we recently were in Etumkondo in Mpumalanga province, and we'll be going to other provinces. The consultation is part of a broader national process to ensure that voices of women, youth, and persons with disabilities inform South Africa's contribution to the G20. It is also a build-up for the upcoming National Women's G20 conference, which we intend to convene ahead of our Empowerment of Women Working Group ministerial meeting in October and the G20 Leaders Summit, where heads of state and government will meet in Johannesburg this November. For this reason, we are saying the G20 must not only be for politicians and economists, it must be accessible to all of us and all our people. Can I therefore continue to say, coming to our budget, we'll remember that our budget comes shortly after the end of Youth Month, as well as the commemorations of the 50th anniversary of June 16, which is 1976, June 16. First, during this month, we did not only highlight the significant milestones that the country has achieved in honoring the demands of the youth of 1976, but we also listened to voices of young people from all walks of life on how we can better respond to the current crisis of a largely idle, unemployed, and economically inactive youth. We paid particular attention to the composition of the youth that is referred to as neither in education, employment, or nor training category. and particularly those in rural and farming communities, and those who have completed their studies at different levels and are sitting at home. Secondly, we recognize the incredible progress we've made in opening the doors of higher education and training to poor and working class youth, despite the lingering challenges that are currently being attended to. Thirdly, we recognize the significance of high impact initiatives such as the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative in transitioning young people from learning to earning opportunities, with over 4.7 million young people now registered on the National Pathway Management Network and more than 1.6 million earning opportunities secured through a variety of initiatives and partnerships. We commend, for example, the 200,000 young teaching assistants who just commenced their work as part of this PYEI. Our principle is that all youth empowerment initiatives must have clearly defined exit opportunities and pathways to transition to employment or new venture creation initiatives. We also will also be announcing plans to reimagine the NYDA into a vehicle that is truly representative, responsive, and fit for purpose. But we'll also be appreciating the work that NYDA is doing today. We will be announcing governance initiatives that we have implemented and put in place in our budget vote. But of course, the achievements that have been made by our National Youth Development Agency. We'll have this opportunity to provide a progress update on our 2023-24 commitment to rally all of government and all of society behind the implementation of the South African National Service Institute, which we refer to as SANSI, our flagship interdepartmental initiative that will implement a de-siloed, industry-oriented, market-fit, and nationally coordinated national youth service for South Africa. Work is underway to ensure that phase one cultivates thousands of AI, coding and robotics instructors, cybersecurity startups, drone technicians, industry energy components manufacturers, market-oriented smallholder agricultural producers, and agro-processors. Of course, we'll also be looking at primary healthcare practitioners, as well as artisans paving rural and small town roads. This game-changing initiative will rally all of government at all levels and all of society, especially industry associations, to reinforce our country's ongoing war on youth unemployment. It is pleasing that we're receiving letters from premiers of provinces who are saying we want it started now, not tomorrow, and we are ready to fund some of these projects. So yes, our Youth Month gave us the time to listen to young people from all walks of life. And I can confirm that the youth question is indeed an actual crisis. But at the same time, I can say without any fear of contradiction that young people of this country have concrete solutions. Our job is to cultivate, coordinate, and mainstream these ideas and catalytic initiatives throughout all levels of the public and private sector. I can also confirm that young people are ready to work the land and sell their produce to both domestic and international markets. And we got this from our young people themselves. I can confirm that young people are ready to lead cybersecurity startups capable of protecting our critical infrastructure or build drones that can support border management and other industrial applications, as well as our national roads. I can confirm that young people are prepared to be trained on how to beneficiate our untapped wealth of critical minerals, but they need a fair amount of the transformation fund to be dedicated to youth in mining and relevant value chains. And in this regard, we'll be announcing what NYDA is doing in that regard. I can confirm that our young people are already unlocking vast amounts of value in gaming industry, but they need us to invest meaningful resources in their sector of the digital economy. I can confirm that unemployed graduates are ready to reinforce municipal level production and service delivery, But we need to do away with unnecessary tendering that tends to benefit established businesses and business people who are already established. For example, I can confirm that young people are ready and capable of responding to the water infrastructure crisis facing our municipalities, but they need to be given a fair chance to prove themselves. So, yes, there are challenges, but equally, there are solutions, and young people are ready to give and provide us with those solutions because they themselves are a solution. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Um, Colleagues, I think you realized how important this department is because it does speak to all South Africans, from young people, women, and persons with disabilities, which are the key stakeholders. And the challenges are both social and economic. And we appreciate the Minister has delivered to us. Minister, we have questions that we have been able to collect from online, and we have media houses that are here. We'll first give those who are present with us here, if they do have any follow-up questions, and follow up to that, and we'll take the online questions. Thank you very much. You will say your name and the media house that you're representing. Okay. I think the minister's message was clear. Oh, I thought you don't take questions after the pastor has spoken. Edwin?
Yeah, I just want to see please. Thank you. I'm Edwin Chivizo from SA News GCRS. Minister, you haven't presented yet your budget vote, but surely uh, there are things that you would like to share with the nation. Can you mention perhaps two of them? What would you like the nation to know or to assure the nation from the things that will be coming out from your budget vote? Thank you.
We have identified 5 broad strategic imperatives that we think that when we implement them, they will actually make us able to do our work. Welcome. Yeah. Yes. First, our approach is that we'd want to accelerate the realization of rights for targeted groups, which we'll do through advocacy and mainstreaming, and will not be doing that only in principle, but in practice through bold policy, legislation, frameworks, strategies, and programs. What this means is that in our budget vote, we will therefore be announcing some of the policies, some of the legislations, frameworks, and strategies and programs that we will actually be implementing come these 5 years. Second, we are saying we want to drive structural and institutional transformation to ensure that economic justice, inclusive development, and social empowerment for vulnerable groups are not an afterthought, but a designed architecture in all state and societal machinery. And if you look at the medium-term development plan, we've actually managed this. Of the 3 priorities, the issue of these vulnerable groups is actually taken care of. And therefore, we don't want to see this being an afterthought, but we are going to ensure that it is at the forefront and it is being driven by everybody. Thirdly, it is to strengthen research, coordination, monitoring, evaluation, so that everything that we do is evidence, whether it is programming, whether it is the very mainstreaming advocacy monitoring, it is based on research and therefore it is evidence based. Fourthly, it is to strengthen technological capabilities to ensure first automation of our internal systems to improve our service offerings, as well as elevate education, awareness, and use of technology for our vulnerable groups, in particular, our persons with disabilities. We've been to other countries, we've realized how technology is assisting persons with disabilities. And therefore, this will be our other priority. And lastly, it will be modeling, coordinating, and mainstreaming our catalytic and strategic projects aimed to establish empowerment exit pathways and pipeline interventions for sectors we are leading through emerging industrialist apprenticeship programs. And I think in my speech, where I referred to SANSI, this is the model that we'll be using. So these are our 5 priorities, and they're overarching. And what we will be doing will be based on this. I think that actually answers your question. Thank you very much. Without myself delivering my budget vote right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
All right. Thank you, Minister. I think there's an appetite, but we've just been joined by the Deputy Minister, as we have announced that she will be coming a bit late. She's with us, so Minister will be assisted by Deputy Minister Letsike, the officials, Dr. Kahala, and Puti Mabelebele, together with the chairperson of NYT Airport. So some of the questions can be directed to them. I saw a hand. You will then say your name and the media house.
Lula Mamaja, ACBC. Minister, looking at how things are going, one would say the fight against GBV, seemingly the country is losing it. It's not winning it. From your assessment in speaking to stakeholders involved, what needs to be done? Where are the loopholes, if there are any? What is it that the country needs to do to win the fight against GBV?
I will, but I will also allow the DM to come in. There are 2 views on the issue of gender-based violence. On Friday, no, on Tuesday, we visited a civil society called GAP that is actually dealing with the issue of gender-based violence and femicide. They are operating in police stations, hospitals, they have shelters, etc. What the lady said to us is that people are actually becoming aware of gender-based violence and femicide. They know that there's something called gender-based violence and femicide, and when it happens, you've got to report it and you've got to act on it. And because of that, and therefore they are seeing many people coming forward to report that a husband is beating me, or a husband is taking my money, or a husband is abusing me emotionally. Something that normally would not have happened, because that would have been taken as a family matter. But because we've made South Africans aware of this, and therefore they are reporting it. That is one other issue. But there is another one that actually says, despite all that, we still have the prevalence of gender-based violence and femicide, and that is what the study confirmed, that 1 in 3 women in South Africa have actually experienced gender-based violence and femicide. And of course, we have got quite an alarmingly high femicide in South Africa. If you look at what is happening per week, for instance, I was just driving to here, and in the news, they're actually reporting that there's somebody around Cape Town, again, a woman who's not been seen for about a month or so now. And she was last seen with a boyfriend. And people in the area are concerned that maybe there isn't much seriousness in looking for this woman. And they are thinking that it's possible that that woman might be killed or might be dead somewhere and killed by a boyfriend. Whether that is true or not, but that is what people think now. And that is just the news. You are in the car, just within 30 minutes or even less than 30 minutes, there are such news, which therefore says we do have the real problem of femicide in South Africa. And it is a matter that requires all of us. And therefore, to say what needs to be done, It definitely calls on government to provide the leadership in terms of ensuring that, one, we prevent, but two, when it has happened, people get arrested, because a lot of gender-based violence and femicide is crime anyway, and people need to be arrested and need to face the full mighty of the law. But also, like we always say, it requires all of us, because it's something that is done by.
Um, I don't see any hand. That means colleagues agrees with me. And thank you very much. Please report on us. The work that you're doing is quite critical. It touches on young people, vulnerable groups, as well as women. And